Hey, today I'm talking about 3 Freddy Prince Jr. films. And the names of those 3 movies are Down to You, Summer Catch, and Wing Commander. But this up is Down to You. This is a 2000 film starring Freddy and Julia Stiles, and the basic premise is this covers the course of a college relationship in a retrospective way as like this first great love thing. And I was really blown away by this film. It felt like such an honest, earnest look at a relationship. Like the romance phase right away and how you're just kind of obsessed with this person, but then just like how certain things eventually trigger you. What kind of puts the relationship in a downward spiral is this pregnancy scare thing, and how one of them is not ready to be a parent, even though that's not really a thing that's actually going to happen. They just like get it very in their head, and it like kind of taints the whole relationship, and then things just kind of fall apart from there. That's a bit of a spoiler, but I think it's fine to illustrate my point of how great this movie is. Like, yeah, it's silly and a bit over the top, but that's kind of how relationships are at times. They can be so ridiculous, but also like, I don't know, it's a vibe. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed this movie. Their chemistry was great. It was such a good story, told really well. It had a great ending. It just top to bottom really worked for me. It's a really delightful, charming little film that I wholeheartedly recommend. If you want a good, fun relationship movie, this is a good, fun relationship movie. So yeah, definitely worth a watch. Next up is Summer Catch. This is a 2001 movie starring Freddy Prince Jr. and Jessica Biel, and it's really strange because it's essentially 2 very different movies smashed together in a way that doesn't work. So on one hand, you got your classic baseball story. Freddy Prince Jr. plays this young baseball player who's playing in the Nantucket League or something like that. It's a good stepping stone to the majors, and it's filled with all of your classic baseball tropes and moments. It's got like the melodrama music that you come to expect in these types of films. And honestly, those emotional moments do work. Like, it is very tropey, but like that stuff is very solid. And then the other half of the movie is a raunchy teen sex comedy. And man, it is like oil and water. These 2 things do not mesh well at all. Like, I kept being to myself, why are they just like suddenly like going from like this really nice, beautiful moment to just like, these guys are trying to have sex with this one woman. You got Matthew Lillard in this. When he's not being just a disgusting, gross person, I like him. He's got the charm. But like so much of the time, he's like sex obsessed or just constantly fat shaming someone. He's just so disgusting in this. And like, I can like a good teen sex comedy, but the need to smash this together with this wholesome baseball movie was just so strange. Like, I do get that in real life people are the whole spectrum. They have these big dreams that they are very emotionally attached to, and also people are horny, but they did not combine the things well, is my main takeaway. So would I recommend this movie? And the answer is no. The only way I would is if you are like a really big baseball movie fan and you don't mind teen sex comedy stuff. Otherwise, this movie really does not have an audience because it's targeting 2 very different audiences that don't overlap. So yeah, no, this is not a movie for the masses. It's a movie for specific individuals. So yeah. And lastly is Wing Commander. This is a 1999 sci-fi film loosely based off of the video game franchise of the same name. And the basic premise is, I don't know, sci-fi stuff. I just could not give a shit about this movie at all. It was Firstly, I watched it on DVD, and like, I know this isn't the movie's fault, it's some engineer's fault. So it's letterboxed, you know, because it's widescreen, but then they formatted it so that it could fit on a square TV. So it looked like this, and I'm like, well, this is terrible, and you know, it's a DVD, so it's 480p, so it's like just terrible quality anyway. So then I had to like digitally zoom in, and like, oh my god, it did not look good. So I was kind of set up for failure right from the get-go. But it was just so boring and so dull. And honestly, I don't feel bad for not liking this movie because Freddy Prince Jr. himself is like, I hate this movie, this is like the worst thing I've ever done. So yeah, no, I really did not care for this movie and would not recommend it. It's just kind of a nothing movie. I'm sure if I cared more, I could probably be like, oh, this was terrible, this was terrible. But no, it's just, oh God, I could not be bothered to give a shit about this movie. So yeah, no. Terrible movie, don't recommend. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Down to You, sitting at number 38 in the Really Like section. And then after that is Summer Catch, sitting at number 78 in the Liked section. And then bringing up the rear, rightfully so, is Wing Commander, sitting at number 101 in the Didn't Like category. This is out of a total of 102 old movies so far this year. And before I go, I want to quickly talk about the whole reason I decided to do this theme is that I got to meet Freddy Prince Jr. at C2E2 this year. Obviously, I love Freddy from a ton of different things. Star Wars Rebels, for sure. You got the 2 live-action Scooby-Doo films. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit of what happened. I really wanted to see him on Saturday because I was wearing Star Wars High Republic stuff and he's, you know, a Jedi. So like I figured he might not exactly recognize it, but I'm sure he would still appreciate it. Unfortunately though, he was very busy on Saturday, so I just never got a good opportunity to go into his line because I was just like, whenever I went by, it was just like absurd. I did, however, after the Star Wars Rebels panel, he was on a golf cart going back to the celebrity area. And my sister pointed it out as we were walking by. So I looked over and then like waited for him to like look up. And eventually he did. And I waved and he waved back. And it was just a nice fun moment. He looked a bit tired that day, which is fair. Conventions take a lot of energy out of you. I thought that maybe I wouldn't get the chance to actually meet him just because his line would just always be too busy and I just wouldn't have the time for it. But then the last day, like right as we're leaving, my sister was taking forever to wrap up. So I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna take like one more walk around the convention hall. And I get over to the celebrity area. I'm looking at Freddy's line and it's super short. And I'm like, is it closed off? Can I get into this? And no, it wasn't. And I could get into it. So I was like, all right, let's do this. It was the very last thing I did at C2E2. And I'm so glad I did it. It was such a delightful experience. Right before I got to him, he was talking to his handler about how he's like, oh, we're in like a groove right now. Let's keep it going. And I was like, oh, okay. But I do want to talk for a second. And right away, I told him about how much I love the movie The House of Yes, which is true. I crazy love that movie. It is absurd and ridiculous, but just so brilliantly written. It stars Parker Posey. You can watch my whole review of it to hear my whole thoughts. But that's basically all we talked about is The House of Yes. And then immediately he just like started praising Parker Posey. She treated him like a brother on set and off set. He made a comment about going out and like her just like pushing girls away from him, which he was single all the time and was a little annoyed by, but also still appreciated just like that care that she put into him. And really he had nothing but praise to give for Parker, which wasn't what I was intending the conversation to be about, but it was so interesting that both him and then also I talked to Rachel Lee Cook about Parker Posey, and both of them just had nothing but nice things to say. And I'm like, dang it, now I really want to meet Parker Posey. I wanted to meet her before because I've seen a lot of her films, but like now I'm just like, she must be just a delightful person in real life. So yeah, that's really cool to hear. He thanked me for liking his movie. He also said that Parker motivated him to keep on acting, which I find really, really interesting. So that's really cool that she did that for him. I really like too that he was going through the flow of doing like the signing stuff and whatnot, but he just like stopped dead to talk about the movie for a second, to talk about Parker, which I really appreciated, which also makes me think I brought up a good subject matter, that it was something that he cared about. I also like too, when he said thank you for liking my movie, he like put his hands together and was like, thank you. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. That was just like a more intense version of a thank you. So I was like, just made me feel better. So I don't know, yeah, it was just an all around great experience. Freddy was a super nice guy in real life. If you ever get a chance to meet him at a convention, it's definitely worth the experience of getting to meet him. He's a very kind and nice man. And also still very handsome.